Hello, I'm Alex and welcome back to my YouTube channel. This is a place where I talk about what I've been knitting and what I've been sewing each month, and I'll start today by just letting you know what I'm wearing. So if you've watched the channel before, you saw this just a couple of episodes ago. It's my Rift by Jacqueline Slack, and I knit this in the Fiberco Luma yarn in the Sherry colourway. So I won't talk about this too much because I did show it off a couple of weeks ago. It's a top that I knit quite some time ago, but it's great for this time of year. I feel like as you go into autumn and the weather's cooling off a little, that's when the knitted t-shirt is perfect for that kind of sort of in-between season, so like spring and autumn. I actually chose this colour thinking that I'd probably wear it in the autumn time, so now I'm going to make the most of wearing it while it's still warm enough that I don't mind wearing short sleeves, but it's cool enough that I still am happy to wear wool. This is actually a blend that has some linen, I think organic cotton, but I'm going to put all the details in the show notes. I always leave a link just below this video with all the patterns, yarn, everything that I talk about in the episode. There'll be a link to my blog where I have all the show notes there. And just to let you know, if you'd rather get that in an email form, every time a video goes live, all the people that are subscribed to my channel newsletter get a notification that the next video's gone live, and right there in the email they'll have a breakdown with every link and everything that I've been talking about in the episode. So if you want to sign up for that, there'll be a link below as well. And now I've let you know where you can find all the things I'm talking about, I will get on and I'll show you some of those things. So I think the first thing I will show you is, let's start with the tiniest thing. So this is actually called For the Tiniest, and it's in one of my new bags. I'm not sure how well, oh there we go. I'm working with a new camera and I wasn't sure how well it was going to change with the lighting. I'm sitting right in front of the window on a lovely, it's an overcast day, but it's quite warm and I've got lots of light, so hopefully everything will show up nicely on the camera. But anyway, in one of my new autumn bloom bags that are, when you see this video, there probably will be a few in the shop. I opened up pre-orders for everybody who's already following my shop, and I've just about got all the pre-orders out and I've got some fabric left over, so I've been making just a couple of bags with whatever I've got left, and then the following week I'll start making some new bigger batches. But for now, if you want to have a look, there'll be a few of these in the shop, and inside, as I said, tiny weeniest little thing. The pattern is by Cindy McDonald and it's called For the Tiniest, and it is a really tiny baby hat. And this was knitted, two of my friends had premature twins, so they were born at 27 weeks, and I've been knitting these little preemie hats. So this was one I actually haven't sent over to them because there was a little ridge inside the hat, which you probably won't even see on camera, but I had a break in the yarn and I had to weave in the ends, and they're so delicate. I just didn't want that seam. I thought maybe it would disappear with blocking, but you can still feel it. So you can see how tiny it is by looking at my hand. It's quite hard to show. It has an I-cord little top knot and it fits great. They've sent me some pictures and both the babies look adorable. So I knit the, it's a great pattern actually, because I looked at lots of patterns and they have preemie sizes, but they don't always tell you the weights, and as you know, babies come in all shapes and sizes, and what I liked about this pattern is it breaks it down by weight. So the smallest size, which is what I knit, is 2 to 3 pounds, then it goes 3 to 4, 4 to 5, 5 to 6, and then I think there is a newborn size after the 6 pound. So they've got you covered for all of the different sizes, and as I say, this fit really well on both the babies. One was just under £2 and one was over £2, so it's a really nice hat. I did a little bit of research and saw that they prefer to have kind of finer yarns, so not really big bulky hats, and things that are nice and stretchy and not too tight. So this was a great pattern, and it was actually designed by somebody who had designed it for premature babies, and there were some pictures in the pattern of it actually on her twins as well. So I have already gifted the hats, but I'll show you the yarns I use. So this was in a blue shade, and this is Cascade Heritage Solids. I'll put the colour numbers below because these all have numbers. I've got these everywhere, but this is what the label looks like for the Cascade Heritage, and they all just come with a number. So I did that. I did a lovely classic white. The white looked beautiful. As you saw, this was the Wool Barn. I think this was Luxury Sock in their Strawberries and Cream colourway. And I've got a couple more in here that I'm yet to do. So I've got a lovely mini skein. That's a Wool Barn sock as well. And another Wool Barn. This is a darker blue speckle. So yeah, this bag's just basically filled with all the yarn that I've been using to do the hats. And it felt really nice to knit them something special, and Mum and Dad really appreciated it. And as I say, the babies looked adorable in their hats, so I'm hoping that they just keep getting stronger every day, and that their hats are keeping them cozy and making them feel comforted at this time. So if you're looking for a hat pattern for preemies, or as I say, it went up to newborn size, I highly recommend it. It was a really simple pattern in fingering weight yarn that knit up fairly quickly because it's so small. So I didn't find it's a problem to have that kind of fine yarn that you get with fingering yarn. But it's, really simple pattern to follow. And I love that little I-cord ending where you kind of tie the little loop. I thought that just made it a little bit different, and it looked really cute on them. So that's the hats. What should I show you next? I've got some socks. So I've got a few things today. I've really got my knitting mojo back at the moment. So this is in one of my sock sacks. And I'll show you, I've got the tiny weenie sock that's in one of my Autumn Bloom needle cozies. So I've actually finished one of the socks, and I've just got the beginning of a toe. This is another Cascade Heritage yarn. I've mentioned in a previous episode that I bought 13 skeins of this yarn for another video that I made. I'm a bag maker, as you know, because I've shown you some of the bags that I've made, and I wanted to do a video comparing all the different sizes and showing you what fits in the bag using skeins that were all the same weight and the same size. So I bought 13 skeins of Cascade Heritage, and so I'm working my way through it basically, and luckily I have got my knitting mojo back for socks. I've knit, this is, I think it's At the Vicarage. It's an Agatha Christie reference, and this is a pattern by Olivia of This Handmade Life. She had a sale going in August, and if you've watched previous episodes, you'll know I really enjoy knitting her socks. And I just thought, I'm not sure if that'll show up any better, but I just think it looks really beautiful from the top of your foot. It's got a lovely, very simple pattern. This was a really nice knit, and it was a different heel that I've never knit this kind of heel before. So you went from the toe up, which is actually my preferred method. I prefer to do toe up, and it has, I can't remember if this was, that's a 1x1 twisted rib, I think, and I used Jenny's surprisingly stretchy bind off, and it has a really great stretch, which I always find my stretchy bind offs are more comfortable than when I cast on. Even if I use a stretchy cast on, I always find this cast on is even stretchier. And as I say, it was a different heel than I knit before. So I enjoyed that, and I'm glad I picked up another one of her patterns to add to my collection, because I have knit several of hers. And as I said, I'm not sure what colourway of this is, but I will leave that in the show notes as well. So it was, how long did it take me? I can't remember, but I really was in the sock zone. So I knit this one, and I've actually got another pair that I've completely finished. This is the Cozy Autumn sock, which is also by Olivia of This Handmade Life. And I've knit this several times. I think I even showed them in the previous episode where I'd knit the Fibercoat Amble into these Cozy Autumn socks. So as soon as I finished those socks, I cast another pair straight on because I was so used to the pattern, it was almost memorised. I do have to look at each row just to double check what I'm doing, but it came very naturally. So while I was kind of in the flow of knitting this particular pattern, cast another one on straight away, because these are my favourite kind of socks where it has that gentle sort of cabling, but without, I didn't need to use cable needle for those socks. It just has that very gentle sort of texture to it, similar to these. I wouldn't say, like, I haven't used cable needle for this. They're more lacy, but it has a really, really nice look to them. They look very delicate and dainty. So I've got 2 pairs of socks, and that again was Cascade Heritage, and I'm actually going to, I think, combine these 2 yarns and I'm going to knit some mittens for my nephew. So as soon as I've got my other sock off the needle, I'll check how much I've got left of each, and there's a pattern in one of the Making Stories publications that they did for kids with some great mittens that are striped. So I think that's what I plan to do with my leftovers after these. So the only other thing I've got to show you is I've got a sweater which I've been working on. So this is in one of my big sweater sacks, and I'm using Knit Picks Wool of the Andes to make another Jacqueline C. Slack pattern. I've got, oh, it's all about the bags today, because I've got one of my little Notions pouches, and I love this because I have done the Notions patch for the first time in this Autumn Bloom fabric. So in here I've got my stitch markers, a tape measure, some snips, some scrap yarn for putting my sleeves on hold, and a pen and a little needle. So I've got my little bits in there. I mean, I could just throw them in my bag, but I love using my bag, so I've got one of my Notions pouches in here just because I wanted to be extra and use it. So in here I've got to the point where I'm separating for the sleeves. This is called Asina by Jacqueline C. Slack, and it's a really nice simple V-neck. It's got some details which you can probably see best on the back, where it's got this sort of seam detail at the back, and that actually runs through the back, the front from the centre V, and it's the same on all of the raglans front and back. So I think that's a lovely detail, and it's simple to do that detail, and I think it will look really effective because it's quite a sort of simple pattern. No, well, I suppose actually it's not simple, because if you see the pattern photos, if you click the link below that I'll leave to the pattern, it actually has a sort of V at the bottom, which again is using these textured stitches that you create. So it's not super simple, but I think it will just be really effective. It will be a nice sort of detail at the top and at the back. I think it will be nice not just having a plain back, but having this kind of spine detail. And it's knitting up really nicely. On the camera, hopefully it's picking up. This yarn is, I'd say it reminds me of sort of raisin. It's brown, but it definitely leans to kind of reds and purples, and it has a lot of speckles kind of through it that gives it a really nice tonal quality, and in the light it sort of looks different in different lights. So I'm really pleased with how that's coming along. I'm at the point, as I said, where I've separated for the sleeves, and I'm just going round and round on the body now until I get to the point where I need to do the this triangle detail that you have at the bottom. So I've been loving that. I can't remember when I started it. I did cast on a while ago. Actually, I showed recently a little sweater I made for my nephew that was also in a Knit Picks yarn. So my sister actually purchased that Knit Picks yarn for me to make the sweater for my nephew. And as it was coming all the way from America, I couldn't resist adding something in for myself. So it's my first time working with this yarn, and I'm quite pleased. I'm really interested to see what it will look like when it's blocked, if it's going to relax a little, maybe have a little bit more drape. It's 100% Peruvian wool, and yeah, it feels like it's got a nice structure to it. And the other yarn that I was using from Knit Picks for my nephew's sweater was called Swish DK, and that was a washable yarn, so that had a lot more sort of softness and drape to it, and this is more a kind of yarn that I like, where it has a bit more structure and woolliness to it. It's a very good price point for knitting a sweater. I can't remember exactly because they do the translation to pounds. I think it was about £3.50 for a 50-gram ball. So I'll show you because I've got all the balls in here. These bags are great because they hold so much. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I've got 7 balls in here at the moment. And so this is what one of them looks like in the ball band. And as I say, it's 100% Peruvian Highland wool, so it's hand wash, dry flat. And yeah, if you want to try 100% wool, that might be a good one to go for if you're on a budget. As I say, I'm interested to see what it will be like when it blocks. I would definitely use the yarn again if I was looking for something kind of at that price point for knitting a sweater, especially if I was doing maybe a sweater that was like really big and oversized and long sleeves and that was going to be quite expensive. But I don't think I like it as much as some of the other yarns that I've used. So if I was knitting a sweater, I might save up a little bit more and purchase one of my favourite yarns. So I will reserve judgment until I have blocked it though, because actually I'm really enjoying knitting with it, and I just think it will be interesting to see what blocks like and how it will hang and drape. And I bet as soon as I have finished it, I'm going to be raving about it, and then you're going to see all my future videos going to have me knitting sweaters in this yarn. So as I say, it was a really good price point for my budget, so I could knit more sweaters if I was purchasing this yarn. So we shall see what happens in future episodes. But yeah, I recommend giving that a try if you can get Knit Picks where you are. It was really easy getting it shipped over from America. The shipping was very reasonable. I think it was about £6 shipping if you were below the threshold. If you spent over a certain amount, then the shipping was free. And it came really, really quickly considering how far it was coming. I was really happy with how that panned out, because I thought it could have taken a long time, especially at the point when I was ordering it was a few months ago when the post was pretty slow here as well. But as I say, it came quickly. So I think that's all of the knitting things I've got. I've got something to show you that's more sewing related, although not actually sewing anything yet. But basically I'm making a quilt, and I've got, so I'll show you this first. So I'm using one of my screens, so one of my fabric designs, and I've printed a really, really big piece of fabric. So I think this was about 1.5, maybe 2 meters, and you'll recognise this print from my shop, and I've printed it onto a quilting weight cotton. This is 100% organic cotton from, I think, it's Cloud 9, that's what it's called, Cloud 9. So as you can see, I'll stand up, really big piece of fabric, and I'm going to make a quilt that will just have that simple piece with a nice sort of diamond quilted into it, which I've done previously. I'll leave a link below because I do have a tutorial of how to do it, where you just have one piece of fabric on the front, one piece of fabric on the back, with your batting sandwiched in the middle, and you quilt using lines going on the diagonal and then lines going on the diagonal back the other way, and it creates a very simple but beautiful quilt. And combined with this print, I'm going to use this, it probably won't show up all that well on camera because I think it's going to get blown out, but it's a sort of shade that I'd maybe call bone. It's a very warm white that also almost looks like a stone colour. And for the binding, I'm going to use this blue, which is a very sort of denim tealy shade. It's a very rich colour. So I think that will look really nice together. and I managed to find, I've been looking for an organic cotton supplier. So this was a batting from a company called Bosal Catadin. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that right, but there'll be a link below. And this is a batting that is 100% organic cotton. So I'm really excited to try that. It looks and feels just like any other batting that I've used. So I'm really excited to have found a company that do organic cotton batting. So I'll be trying that out. And yeah, I'm really pleased. I don't know if this will be something that I'll ever offer in my shop. I'm just purely doing this as a personal project. Ever since I made the quilt that I mentioned before, I've really been wanting to do one with my own fabric, but it's quite a process to print something this big. What you have to do, if you imagine each print is on a rectangular screen, and you print every other block. So if you've got a really, really long piece of fabric, you're going to work out how wide your pattern is, how wide your pattern repeat is on that screen, and you're going to measure out that same distance all the way along your fabric, and you're going to print every other patch. So you'd have sort of one here, one here, one here, and then when it's dry, then you go back and fill in those middle ones, because as you can imagine, you can't lift up your screen that you've just had your wet ink on and put it straight down next to it, because your print in the middle is going to get damaged by the frame that goes around the outside. So you're going to put your frame into the wet ink that you've just printed. So that's why you leave a gap and you print every other repeat, and then you go back and fill it in the middle, and then once you've filled it in, it looks like just one long continuous piece. There's no gaps. But yeah, it's quite laborious and it's difficult because I work in a really small space. I don't work in a big print studio where you have those beautiful long tables for printing like that. So it takes quite a lot of planning, organisation, getting everything ready, and it is a really interesting process, and I'm glad I've done it. And it might be something, if there was enough interest, perhaps if you want to leave a comment if it's something you'd be interested in, let me know whether you would want to either see a finished quilt that you've maybe purchased, something that I've sewn from start to finish and would sell as a finished piece, or maybe you'd be interested in kits, and I could sell kits where I would have my fabric, the fabric for the back, fabric for the binding, fabric for the batting, some instructions on how you could put together your own quilt. That could be something that I would do, but for now this is just a personal project and it's something that I've been really interested to try. So you will see this in a future episode. As I say, I just got to the point where I've been washing all my fabrics, printing it, finally got the batting in, and I just haven't had the time to sit down and sew it, but that is going to be something I'm going to do soon. So maybe in the next episode, if not, then definitely the one after, I'll show some progress on that. But as I said, leave a comment below if you'd be interested in kits or finished quilts, and if you are interested in making your own quilt, I'll leave that link to the tutorial so you can have a go yourself, because it's really, really simple. If you haven't sewn a quilt before, it's a really good one to try, and you can just do it on a regular sewing machine. You don't need to have any kind of special sewing machine. The only thing that does help is to have a walking foot, which is a simple foot that you can buy, and it just means that your fabric will flow through much more smoothly because it's quite a thick piece once you've got your batting sandwiched in the middle. So by using a walking foot, you'll find that helps your quilt just glide through, and it just feels like you're sewing a regular piece of material, sewing a garment. And it's, yeah, a really great addition. If you haven't tried using a walking foot on your normal machine for sewing quilts or jersey fabrics, then I highly recommend that's a little upgrade that you can get. And some of them are expensive. I've bought a generic one, so it wasn't the specific one for my machine. So you can buy like the Brother one, the Janome, all the different brands have their own, but I bought a generic one that fits my machine fine, and it was a lot less than buying the sort of official one that should have gone with my machine. So that's all I've got to show you for today. I will say goodbye now. I did want to quickly say thank you to everybody who left some feedback on whether you've been seeing adverts on my videos, and a lot of you said you didn't see adverts, which were great, but I have noticed in the last week, anytime I've been clicking over to my channel, I have been seeing adverts, so I assume it's something that's rolling out slowly now. YouTube have decided to put adverts on all channels, whether you're part of the ad program or not, so it probably is something that you're going to start seeing more often, but it was really interesting to kind of get that feedback and see what parts of the world were seeing them, because I think it depends on where you are, what adverts you see and how many you see. So that was really interesting. I'm not opposed to adverts, and I don't mind other people having adverts on their channel. I actually am someone that watches all the adverts. I don't skip adverts if I'm watching some of my favourite YouTubers, because I know that for them to get the money from the advertising on their channels, people actually have to watch them. They don't get the money if anyone skips, and you can imagine, I'm sure most people skip the adverts, but it's something that I feel that I can do to support them by just watching that minute-long advert. It only costs me time, and it is something that I do. So it's not that I'm against adverts as a whole. It was more for my channel. I have quite a small channel, so I just felt that I know a lot of people do find adverts irritating and annoying, and they don't want to watch them. So for the very tiny amount of money that I probably would get from putting adverts on my channel, I decided not to have them on my channel, so that people could have an uninterrupted experience watching my videos, and it saves me the time of having to record and do the accounts for that little bit of money coming in from YouTube that I'd have to pay tax on. So it was sort of, those were the main things really, that I just thought, it's for the small amount that I would probably make on a channel my size, I felt it wasn't really worth the time that I'd have to do accounting and recording that little bit of revenue coming in. And I know that a lot of people would probably prefer the experience, but as I say, I'm really supportive of other channels that have adverts. And yeah, that's maybe a tip. So if you have some of your favourite creators, maybe you want to start watching their videos now, you know, because I don't think a lot of people know that they don't get paid for adverts on their channel unless somebody actually watches them. So, and even then it's probably like a tiny amount. I don't know, because I'm not signed up to it, but I do think it's a bit cheeky that YouTube have decided to just across the board, whether you're signed up or not, because now if they put an advert on a channel like mine, they are taking all of the revenue from that, and they're not sharing that with me unless I decide to go down the route of signing up for it. And yeah, we'll have to see. But I really appreciated everyone who took the time to leave a comment about that below. So I won't waffle on about that anymore, and I will say thank you for watching, and I'll remind you to like the video if you enjoyed this. It tells YouTube that you like these knitting videos, and it will probably help you see more knitting videos from other people that do something similar to me. So it's a great way of showing them what you like, and it's another thing you can do is subscribe to the channel if you don't want to miss an episode. Anytime my video goes live, you'll get a notification, you'll see it in your subscription feed. And I'll just say one more time that if you want to get the show notes to your email, that link will be below. So I think I've covered everything, and I will tell you to have a lovely day, and I hope you find some knitting time, and I hope you have a great week ahead. I will speak to you soon. Thank you. Bye bye.